Welcome to Opportunities Without Borders, a podcast inspired by the Be Active Together project. Today, we are going to explore a simple but powerful idea. What happens when people with intellectual disabilities are given meaningful opportunities to participate, travel, connect with others, and grow through sport? Throughout this conversation, we will reflect on experiences gathered through local activities, international mobility, shared challenges, and unforgettable moments that brought people together across borders. We will talk about what we learned, what surprised us, and why creating opportunities matters far beyond the sports field. The Be Active Together project was co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union and brought together participants, coaches, social workers, volunteers, and organizations with a shared commitment to inclusion through sport. Joining me today are Anna, project coordinator, Michael, coach, Elena, social worker, Daniel, volunteer, and Alex, participant. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Great to be here.
Happy to join the conversation.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Anna, let's start at the beginning. When people hear about a project like Be Active Together, they often imagine sport activities, training sessions, camps, or competitions. But I have the feeling that the project was about something much bigger than that. What was the real idea behind it?
I think you're absolutely right. Sport was visible throughout the project, but it was never the final goal. It was the tool that allowed us to create something bigger. When we started planning Be Active Together, we kept returning to a simple question. What opportunities are still missing for many people with intellectual disabilities? When we looked honestly at the situation, we realized that many people still have fewer opportunities to participate in everyday activities that others often take for granted. Traveling abroad, joining a sport program, meeting new people, making independent decisions, being part of an international experience, representing their community, building friendships outside their usual social circle. These opportunities may sound ordinary, but they are not equally accessible to everyone. So the project was built around the idea of creating opportunities first, and then allowing everything else to grow from there.
That's interesting because when people talk about inclusion, they often focus on barriers. You're talking about opportunities.
Exactly. Barriers are important to recognize because they are real. But if we focus only on barriers, we sometimes forget why we are trying to remove them in the first place. The purpose is to create opportunities. And opportunities can have a remarkable impact on people's lives. Sometimes one opportunity leads to another. A person joins a local activity. That gives them confidence to participate again. Later, they attend a camp. Then they travel abroad. Then they make new friends. Then they become more independent. When we look back at many positive stories, they often began with a single opportunity that somebody decided to create.
Elena, from your perspective as a social worker, why are opportunities so important?
Because participation does not happen automatically. Sometimes people imagine that inclusion begins when somebody arrives at an activity. In reality, inclusion often begins long before that moment. It begins when information is accessible. It begins when people feel welcome. It begins when families feel confident enough to support participation. It begins when somebody believes they belong. Throughout my work, I have met many people who had the ability to participate but simply lacked the opportunity. Nobody had invited them. Nobody had encouraged them. Nobody had created an environment where participation felt possible. When opportunities are created, people often surprise us. They demonstrate confidence, resilience, and abilities that may have remained hidden simply because nobody gave them the chance to emerge.
So sometimes the challenge is not ability, it's access.
Very often, yes. And that is one of the reasons why projects like Be Active Together are so important. They create access to experiences that might otherwise never happen.
Alex, when you hear us talking about opportunities, what does that word mean to you personally?
For me, it means getting the chance to do something I have never done before. Before the project, I had never traveled in this way. I had never met people from another country through sport. I didn't know what it would be like. I was excited, but I was also nervous. When everything started, I realized that I could do more than I thought. Now, when I think about new activities, I feel much more confident. I know that I can try new things.
Do you think that confidence came from the activities themselves or from the experience around them?
Both. The sport was important, but meeting people, traveling, and being part of the group were important too. I think all those things helped me feel more confident.
One of the early chapters in the handbook is called Beyond Daily Routine. I found that title particularly interesting because routines are usually seen as something positive. Anna, why was it important to talk about this?
Because routines are valuable. They provide comfort, they provide predictability, they provide security. And for many people, including people with intellectual disabilities, routines play an important role in everyday life. But there is another side to the story. If life consists only of familiar routines, opportunities for growth can become limited. One of the strongest observations from Be Active Together was that many meaningful experiences happened when participants stepped into something unfamiliar, traveling to another country, meeting people they had never met before, sleeping in a different place, trying a new activity, communicating in a new environment, experiencing situations that were outside their usual routine. At first, these situations sometimes created uncertainty, but they also created opportunities for learning and personal development.
So it wasn't about leaving routines behind, it was about expanding them.
Exactly. That's a very good way to describe it. The goal was never to remove stability from people's lives. The goal was to expand their horizons and show that they could successfully engage with experiences beyond what they already knew.
As a coach, I saw this repeatedly. I remember participants arriving at activities and initially staying close to familiar people. They observed, they watched, they tried to understand the environment, and that is completely natural. Then something interesting happened. As they became more comfortable, they started engaging more actively. They joined activities, and they communicated more. They supported other participants. They became increasingly confident. When you look at that process, you realize that growth often begins with a small step outside the familiar.
Was there anything that surprised you?
Honestly, yes. I think many of us expected adaptation to take longer. But participants often adjusted much faster than anticipated. By the second or third day, many people were interacting confidently and participating fully. It was a powerful reminder that we should never underestimate people's ability to adapt when the right support is available.
I noticed exactly the same thing as a volunteer. Before the camps, there were many discussions about travel, accommodation, and unfamiliar environments. Some participants were nervous, some families were nervous. And that's understandable. Traveling abroad can feel like a major step. But once people arrived, settled in, and started engaging with activities, confidence grew very quickly. What impressed me most was how many participants embraced the experience. They wanted to explore, they wanted to meet people, they wanted to participate. And by the end, many were already asking when the next opportunity would come.
I think there is an important lesson in that. Sometimes professionals and organizations become so focused on protecting people from challenges that they accidentally limit opportunities for growth. Of course, preparation is essential, support is essential, but challenges are not always negative. Many positive experiences begin with a degree of uncertainty. When participants successfully navigate those experiences, they often discover strengths they did not know they had.
That happened to me. Before traveling, I wasn't sure if I would like it. But afterwards, I felt proud. Now I know that if another opportunity comes, I can do it again.
The next chapter is called More Than Sport. I think this chapter captures something that has already started appearing throughout our conversation. Michael, what does that phrase mean to you?
For me, it means that sport is often only the beginning of the story. People arrive because there is a sport activity, but what they take home is often something much bigger. They take home friendships, they take home memories, they take home confidence, and they take home experiences that continue influencing them long after the activity has ended. When people remember a project years later, they rarely talk first about technical exercises or training methods. They talk about people. They talk about moments, they talk about experiences, and that tells us something important about the real value of sport.
Can you give an example?
Absolutely. Imagine two participants who have never met before. They come from different backgrounds, perhaps even different countries. They start participating in activities together. They cooperate, they encourage one another. They solve challenges together. Gradually, a friendship develops. The activity created the opportunity for that connection to happen. But the connection itself becomes far more important than the activity. That is what I mean when I say it is more than sport.
As a volunteer, I probably noticed that most clearly during informal moments. Of course, the organized activities were important, but some of the strongest relationships developed during meals, breaks, and conversations. People shared stories, they laughed together, they spent time together. Those moments transformed a group of participants into a community, and communities create belonging.
Belonging is a very powerful word. Many people with intellectual disabilities experience periods of social isolation. They may have fewer opportunities to meet new people or participate in broader social networks. So when a project creates a sense of belonging, that outcome can be just as important as any sporting achievement. Feeling accepted, feeling valued, feeling part of a group. Those experiences have a profound impact on confidence and well-being.
For me, meeting new people was one of the best parts. At first, I was nervous. Then we started doing activities together. After a while, it didn't matter where people came from. We were just having fun together.
And I think that is one of the most important lessons from the entire project. Sport creates a reason for people to come together. But once they come together, something bigger becomes possible. People build trust. People build friendships. People discover new abilities. People gain confidence. People start seeing themselves differently. That is why the chapter is called More Than Sport, because the most meaningful outcomes were often not athletic outcomes at all. They were human outcomes.
Listening to all of you, one idea keeps coming back again and again. The project may have been built around sport, but the real story seems to be about opportunities. Opportunities to participate, opportunities to travel, opportunities to meet people, opportunities to discover confidence, opportunities to experience things that once felt out of reach. But none of those opportunities happen on their own. Behind every successful experience, there are people who make it possible. Coaches, social workers, volunteers, families, project teams. People who invest their time, energy, and commitment in creating environments where participation can happen. Let's talk about the people behind the journey. Throughout our conversation so far, we have spoken about opportunities, participation, and experiences. But opportunities do not simply appear on their own. Behind every activity, every camp, and every successful experience, there are people working together to make it happen. One of the things I appreciated most about the handbook is that it dedicates an entire section to the people behind the journey. Not only the participants, but also the coaches, social workers, and volunteers who contribute to creating inclusive environments. Anna, why was it important to dedicate a whole section to these different roles?
Because inclusion is never the result of a single person's effort. When people see a successful event, they often focus on what is happening in front of them. They see participants enjoying activities, they see coaches leading sessions, and they see positive outcomes. What they don't always see is everything that happens before, during, and after those moments. They don't see the preparation, they don't see the coordination, they don't see the conversations with families, they don't see the volunteers helping participants feel comfortable. They don't see the social workers preparing people for unfamiliar situations. In reality, successful inclusion is built through cooperation. Every person involved contributes something different, and each role is equally important.
So let's start where every inclusion initiative should start, with the participant. The handbook says that every inclusion initiative begins with people. That sounds obvious, but I think it's easy to forget. Anna, what did you learn about participants throughout Be Active Together?
One of the most important lessons was that every participant arrived with a unique story. Sometimes, when projects talk about target groups, there is a risk of speaking about people as if they are all the same, but they are not. Each participant had different interests, different experiences, different levels of confidence, and different ambitions. Some participants immediately embraced every activity. Others needed more time. Some were excited about traveling. Others were nervous. Some enjoyed competitive activities. Others preferred social interaction. Recognizing these differences was essential because meaningful inclusion begins with seeing the individual rather than the category.
Was there anything that surprised you?
Yes, how quickly participants exceeded expectations. And I don't mean our expectations as project staff. I mean the expectations that society sometimes places on people with intellectual disabilities. Throughout the project, participants repeatedly demonstrated adaptability, resilience, and confidence. Many traveled abroad for the first time. Many successfully navigated unfamiliar environments. Many developed friendships with people they had never met before. These experiences reminded us that opportunities often reveal potential that remains invisible when people are not given the chance to participate.
I think that's true. Sometimes people assume that something will be difficult before they even try it. But when you actually do it, you realize you can. I remember before traveling, I had a lot of questions. What will it be like? Will I know what to do? Will I feel comfortable? Then, after a few days, I realized everything was okay. Actually, it was more than okay. It was fun.
Did that experience change how you see yourself?
Yes, I think it made me more confident. Now, when new opportunities come, I am more willing to say yes.
And that is exactly why opportunities matter so much. Confidence often develops through experience. People don't become confident first and then participate. Very often, they participate first and confidence develops afterwards.
Let's talk about coaches. Michael, many people think a coach teaches sports skills. The handbook suggests the role is much broader than that.
It definitely is. Of course, coaches teach skills and organize activities, but in inclusive sport, coaching is also about creating environments. You are creating an atmosphere where people feel welcome, where they feel safe, where they feel respected, where they feel encouraged to participate. Sometimes coaching is less about technical instruction and more about helping somebody believe in themselves.
Can you give an example?
Absolutely. Imagine a participant who is hesitant to join an activity. They stand on the side, they watch. They're unsure. A coach has a choice. You can focus on the activity and move on, or you can focus on the person. Maybe that means having a conversation. Maybe it means offering encouragement. Maybe it means adapting the activity. Sometimes a participant's biggest achievement is simply taking the first step and joining in. And when that happens, it can be just as rewarding as any sporting result.
I think coaches played a particularly important role during mobility activities. Participants were experiencing new environments, new routines, and new social situations. The coaches became anchors of stability. They provided structure and reassurance while also encouraging independence. Finding that balance is incredibly important.
What do you mean by balance?
Providing enough support without removing opportunities for growth. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is solve every problem for somebody. But development often happens when people are allowed to solve challenges themselves, while knowing support is available if needed.
Exactly. Good coaching is not about doing things for people. It's about helping people discover what they can do for themselves.
Elena, we've already touched on the role of social workers, but I would like to explore it in more depth. What do people often misunderstand about your work?
Probably how much of it happens behind the scenes. When people see a successful activity, they usually focus on the visible part. What they don't see is the preparation, the planning, the communication, the emotional support, the countless small conversations that help participants feel ready. A lot of our work happens before participants even arrive.
What kind of preparation are we talking about?
Preparing participants for new experiences, explaining what will happen, reducing uncertainty, answering questions, helping people understand routines and schedules, supporting families, building confidence before the activity even begins. These things may seem small, but they have a huge impact.
I remember asking a lot of questions before traveling, and having somebody explain everything helped, because once I knew what to expect, I felt much calmer.
Exactly. Uncertainty often creates anxiety. Information creates confidence. One of the simplest but most effective forms of support is helping people understand what lies ahead.
The handbook talks about social workers helping create bridges between participants and opportunities. I really like that description.
I do too. Because in many ways, that is exactly what the role involves: creating bridges between people and activities, between participants and new experiences, between uncertainty and confidence, between possibility and participation.
Daniel, let's talk about volunteers. I think volunteering is sometimes underestimated in projects like this. People often see volunteers as helpers rather than key contributors.
I completely agree. Volunteers are often the people who make countless small things happen. They welcome participants, they offer encouragement, they provide practical support, they help create a positive atmosphere. And because they often spend informal time with participants, they play an important role in relationship building.
What did volunteering teach you personally?
Honestly, it challenged many assumptions. I joined because I wanted to contribute, but I quickly realized I was learning as much as I was giving. I learned about communication. I learned about patience. I learned about inclusion, and perhaps most importantly, I learned how often people are underestimated. Throughout the project, participants continually demonstrated abilities, confidence, and resilience that many people would never have expected.
I think that is something we all learned. The project changed participants, but it also changed many of the professionals and volunteers involved.
Absolutely. Inclusion is not a one-way process. Everyone grows, everyone learns, everyone gains new perspectives.
Listening to all of you, one thing becomes very clear. The success of Be Active Together was never about a single role. Not the participant, not the coach, not the social worker, not the volunteer. It was about all these people working together, each bringing something unique, each contributing to an environment where opportunities could become meaningful experiences. And speaking of meaningful experiences, the next section of the handbook focuses on some of the moments that shaped the project most deeply. The first meetings, the first challenges, the first achievements, and the shared experiences that transformed a group of individuals into a community. Let's talk about those moments that matter. As we have been talking, one theme keeps coming back again and again. People remember moments, not project plans, not schedules, not work packages, not even individual activities. When people look back on meaningful experiences, they usually remember moments. A first conversation, a first challenge, a first success, a friendship that began unexpectedly, a situation that changed how they saw themselves. The next section of the handbook is called Moments That Matter, and I think this might be one of the most human parts of the entire publication. Anna, why did you decide to dedicate a whole section to moments?
Because when we reflected on the project, we realized that many of the most important outcomes could not be measured through numbers alone. Of course, numbers are useful. We can count participants, we can count activities, we can count events. But some of the most meaningful changes happen through individual experiences. Sometimes a single moment can have a bigger impact than an entire program schedule. Those moments often become turning points. They become memories that participants carry with them long after the project ends.
Let's start with first encounters. Meeting new people sounds simple. Most of us do it all the time. But in the context of Be Active Together, first encounters often meant something much bigger. Elena, what did you observe during those first meetings?
A mixture of emotions, excitement, curiosity, uncertainty, and sometimes nervousness. Many participants were entering environments that were completely new to them. Some were traveling for the first time, some were meeting people from another country for the first time. Some were joining an international group for the first time. Those first moments are always important because people are trying to understand where they are, who is around them, and whether they feel comfortable.
And what helped?
Warmth, patience, simple human interaction, a smile, a conversation, a welcoming atmosphere. People often think inclusion requires complex methods. Sometimes inclusion begins with making somebody feel genuinely welcome.
I remember the first day of one of the camps very clearly. At the beginning, people naturally stayed close to those they already knew. Participants from the same country often remained together. Conversations were cautious. Everybody was observing. Then the activities started. People began interacting, teams mixed. Conversations started, laughter started, and within a surprisingly short period of time, the atmosphere completely changed.
How quickly?
Much faster than I expected. Honestly, by the end of the first day, many of the barriers had already started disappearing. By the second day, it felt as if people had known each other for much longer than they actually had.
Sport helped tremendously. When people are doing activities together, they have a shared purpose. That makes interaction easier. You don't need perfect communication skills. You don't need to speak the same language perfectly. You simply need to participate together. The activity creates natural opportunities for connection.
At the beginning, I was nervous. I didn't know many people. I didn't know what to expect. But after the first activities, it became easier. People were friendly. We started talking. And after that, I felt comfortable.
Do you remember a specific moment when you realized you felt comfortable?
Probably during one of the group activities. Everyone was laughing and having fun. At that moment, I stopped thinking about being nervous. I just enjoyed being there.
The next chapter focuses on first challenges, and every meaningful experience includes challenges. Anna, what were some of the biggest challenges participants faced?
For many participants, traveling itself was a challenge. That may sound surprising to some listeners, but traveling abroad involves many unfamiliar situations. Airports, hotels, different food, different schedules, different environments, new people. For participants experiencing these things for the first time, it can feel overwhelming. But challenges are not necessarily negative. Challenges often create opportunities for growth.
Did participants struggle?
Sometimes, and that is completely normal. But what impressed us was how many participants successfully adapted. Not because challenges disappeared, but because they discovered they could handle them.
I think that's an important distinction. The objective was never to remove every challenge. The objective was to provide enough support for participants to navigate those challenges successfully. There is a big difference. If we remove every challenge, we also remove many opportunities for development. If we provide support while allowing people to engage with challenges, confidence can grow.
As coaches, we often saw this during activities. Some participants were initially hesitant. Perhaps they were unsure about a new exercise. Perhaps they were nervous about working with unfamiliar teammates. But after trying, they realized they were capable. That moment is incredibly powerful because it changes self-perception.
One thing I noticed was that participants often encouraged each other. Sometimes support did not come from staff. It came from fellow participants. People helped one another, cheered for one another, offered reassurance. Those interactions made challenges feel much more manageable.
I remember being nervous about traveling, but after I did it, I felt proud. The challenge became one of my favorite memories.
Challenges naturally lead us to another important topic, achievements. The handbook includes a chapter called First Achievements. Michael, what did achievement look like during the project?
One of the most important lessons we learned is that achievement looks different for different people. Sometimes achievement meant learning a new skill. Sometimes it meant completing an activity independently. Sometimes it meant speaking confidently in front of others. Sometimes it meant traveling abroad. Sometimes it simply meant taking part. What matters is that achievement should be measured against individual progress rather than comparison with others.
Can you think of examples?
Many. I remember participants who initially stood on the sidelines and later became some of the most active members of the group. I remember participants who were nervous about social interaction and later formed friendships with people from another country. I remember participants who doubted themselves at the beginning and left the project with much greater confidence. Those achievements may not appear on a scoreboard, but they are incredibly important.
And they are often more sustainable. A medal is wonderful, but confidence can influence many different areas of life. The ability to believe in yourself extends beyond sport. It affects education, employment, relationships, community participation, personal independence. That is why these achievements matter so much.
For me, traveling was an achievement. Meeting people from another country was an achievement, and making friends was an achievement too.
Which one are you proudest of?
Probably traveling, because before the project, I wasn't sure if I could do it. Now I know I can.
The next chapter in this section is called Shared Experiences. I think this may be one of the most important ideas in the entire handbook. Anna, what do we mean by shared experiences?
Shared experiences are moments that people live together. And those experiences often create stronger connections than any formal activity ever could. When people travel together, train together, overcome challenges together, and celebrate together, they create memories that become part of a collective story. That shared story builds community. And community is one of the most powerful outcomes of inclusion.
I think shared experiences are what transformed participants from a group into a team. At the beginning, people were individuals. By the end, they were part of something together. That transformation happened because of everything they experienced collectively.
And it wasn't only participants. Coaches shared experiences. Volunteers shared experiences. Social workers shared experiences. Organizations shared experiences. The project created connections at many different levels.
What I find most interesting is that many of the strongest memories are not necessarily linked to major events. Sometimes people remember simple moments, a conversation, a meal, a bus journey, a joke, a challenge that everybody overcame together. These seemingly small moments often become the memories people treasure most.
That's true. When I think about the project, I don't only remember the sport. I remember the people. I remember the conversations. I remember traveling together. I remember laughing together. Those are the things I think about most.
Listening to all of you, I think there is a powerful message emerging. Opportunities create experiences. Experiences create memories. Memories create confidence, friendships, and a sense of belonging. And many of those outcomes begin with moments that might seem small at the time, but become deeply meaningful later. The next section of the handbook explores something equally important: what actually happens during the activities themselves. How can movement build trust? How can sport strengthen communication? How can activities encourage cooperation, confidence, and personal growth? Let's explore sport in action. So far, we have spoken about opportunities, people, and experiences. We have explored what happens before activities begin and how relationships develop throughout the journey. Now, I would like to focus on something very practical. What actually happens during sport activities that makes them such a powerful tool for inclusion? Because if we look at sport from the outside, it may seem quite simple. People move, play, exercise, and participate in activities together. Yet throughout the handbook, there is a strong message that sport creates much more than physical activity. The next section is called Sport in Action, and it explores how movement becomes a tool for trust, communication, cooperation, and personal development. Michael, let's start with trust. Why is trust so important in inclusive sport?
Trust is probably one of the most important foundations of any successful activity. Without trust, people are less willing to participate. They are less willing to try new things. They are less willing to take risks, make mistakes, or step outside their comfort zones. What makes sport interesting is that trust often develops naturally through shared experiences. When participants engage in activities together, support one another, and solve challenges together, they gradually begin building confidence not only in themselves, but also in the people around them.
Can trust really develop through something as simple as a sport activity?
Absolutely. Imagine two people who have never met before. They participate in a team exercise. One person helps the other. They encourage each other. They celebrate success together. Those small interactions begin creating trust. Now imagine repeating those interactions over several days. The trust becomes stronger. Eventually, people stop thinking about whether they belong. They simply become part of the group.
I think trust is especially important for participants who are entering unfamiliar environments. Many participants arrived at the camps not knowing what to expect. When they saw supportive coaches, welcoming volunteers, and friendly peers, trust began developing very quickly. That trust became the foundation for everything else. Without trust, communication becomes more difficult, participation becomes more difficult, learning becomes more difficult.
So trust comes before development.
Very often, yes, people need to feel safe before they feel confident enough to grow.
I think that's true. At the beginning, I was nervous. But after spending time with everyone, I trusted the group. Then I felt more comfortable trying new activities.
One thing that stood out to me was how trust developed not only between participants and staff, but also between participants themselves. People began helping each other, checking on each other, encouraging each other. Those relationships became stronger every day.
And that is one of the reasons why repeated activities matter. Trust rarely appears instantly. It grows through shared experiences. Every activity becomes another opportunity to strengthen those relationships.
The next chapter focuses on communication. When people think about communication, they often think about talking. But the handbook seems to suggest something much broader. Elena, what role did communication play throughout the project?
A huge role, and not only verbal communication. One of the fascinating things about inclusive sport is that people communicate in many different ways. Through words, through gestures, through body language, through encouragement, through teamwork, through participation itself. What we observed throughout the project was that activities often created natural opportunities for communication. People had reasons to interact, reasons to cooperate, reasons to support one another. Communication became meaningful because it was connected to real experiences.
Was language ever a barrier, especially during international activities?
Sometimes, but much less than many people expected. And that was one of the most interesting observations. Participants from different countries often found ways to communicate even when they did not share the same language. They used gestures, facial expressions, demonstrations, humor, encouragement. In many situations, human connection proved stronger than language barriers.
I remember seeing participants communicating during activities without speaking much at all. They understood what needed to happen, they supported one another, they celebrated together. Those moments reminded me that communication is much broader than words.
Sport creates natural communication opportunities because participants are constantly interacting. They ask for help, they offer help. They coordinate actions. They solve problems together. And because these interactions happen repeatedly, communication skills improve over time.
I made new friends even though we didn't always speak the same language. Sometimes we just understood each other.
That might be one of the most beautiful things about sport. It creates a common language. Let's move to another important theme: cooperation. Many activities in inclusive sport are designed around working together rather than competing against one another. Why is cooperation so important?
Because cooperation teaches people that success is often achieved together. In everyday life, we constantly rely on other people. We work with colleagues, we interact with friends, we cooperate within families and communities. Sport provides opportunities to practice those same skills. Participants learn how to listen, how to support others, how to contribute to a shared objective, how to celebrate collective achievements.
And these are skills that extend beyond sport.
Exactly. That is what makes them so valuable. The objective is not simply to complete an activity. The objective is to develop experiences that participants can apply elsewhere in life.
One thing I appreciated was that cooperation often reduced anxiety. When people realize they are not facing challenges alone, they become more confident. The group becomes a source of support. Participants understand that success is something they can achieve together.
I also noticed that cooperation helped create friendships. Working together naturally encourages interaction. People begin communicating more, helping each other more, spending time together, and those interactions strengthen relationships.
I liked activities where we worked as a team. It felt good when everybody helped each other.
That sense of teamwork became one of the strongest aspects of the project. Participants were not simply attending activities. They were becoming part of a community. And communities are built through cooperation.
Another chapter in the handbook is called Creating Positive Challenges. I think the phrase positive challenge is very interesting. What does it mean?
A positive challenge is something that encourages growth without creating unnecessary stress. It is a challenge that feels achievable with effort and support. If activities are too easy, people become bored. If activities are too difficult, people become discouraged. The goal is to find the balance where participants feel motivated to try something new while still believing they can succeed.
So challenges are actually important.
Very important. Many positive experiences begin with the challenge, trying something unfamiliar, meeting new people, traveling abroad, learning a new activity. These situations may feel difficult at first, but they often become the experiences that participants remember most.
As coaches, we see this constantly. Participants often achieve more than they initially believe they can. Sometimes all they need is encouragement and the opportunity to try. When they succeed, even in a small way, their confidence increases. Then, they become more willing to tackle future challenges.
And the atmosphere matters. People are much more willing to take risks when they know mistakes are accepted. The camps created environments where participants felt comfortable trying, learning, and improving.
I remember being nervous before some activities, but afterwards I felt proud because I had done them.
And perhaps that feeling of pride is one of the reasons why challenges matter, because challenges create opportunities for achievement. Let's talk a bit as well about celebrating success. We often think about success in terms of medals, trophies, or results. But the handbook seems to take a much broader view. Anna, what did success look like during Be Active Together?
Success looked different for every participant. For some people, success was traveling abroad for the first time. For others, it was making a new friend. For others, it was participating confidently in an activity. For others, it was becoming more independent. One of the most important lessons we learned is that success should never be defined by a single standard. Meaningful success is personal. It reflects growth, effort, and progress.
And why is celebrating success important?
Because recognition matters. When people feel that their efforts are valued, confidence grows, motivation grows, participation grows. Celebrating success helps people see their own progress, and that progress often becomes the foundation for future achievements.
As coaches, some of the most rewarding moments were not necessarily linked to sport performance. They were moments when participants achieved something they previously thought was impossible. Those moments stayed with people, and they stayed with us as well.
Celebrating success also helps create positive memories. People remember how they felt. They remember being encouraged. They remember being recognized. Those emotions strengthen the overall experience.
I remember feeling proud at the end of the camp, not because of one thing, because of everything. The activities, the people, the traveling, the whole experience.
Listening to all of you, it becomes clear that sport is much more than movement. It creates trust. It strengthens communication. It encourages cooperation. It provides positive challenges. And it creates opportunities for success that can influence people's lives long after the activities have ended. But every project also creates lessons. Some expected, some unexpected, some encouraging, some challenging. The next section of the handbook focuses on exactly that. What we learned through the Be Active Together journey and how those lessons can help shape future opportunities for inclusion through sport. Let's talk about what we learned. Every project begins with expectations. Organizers have plans. Participants have hopes. Professionals have objectives. And while preparation is important, experience often teaches lessons that no plan can fully predict. One of the sections I found most interesting in the handbook is what we learned. It moves beyond activities and focuses on reflection. It asks not only what happened, but what those experiences taught us. Anna, now that you have had time to reflect on the project, what stands out most strongly?
One of the biggest lessons is that people are often capable of much more than others expect. That may sound simple, but it was reinforced repeatedly throughout the project. Participants traveled abroad, adapted to new environments, built friendships across cultures, participated actively in activities, solved challenges, supported one another. Many of these experiences were completely new for them, yet they approached them with enthusiasm and resilience. The project reminded us that limitations are often assumed before they are actually tested. When meaningful opportunities are provided, people frequently demonstrate abilities that surprise everyone around them, including themselves.
The first chapter in this section is called What Worked Better Than Expected. I always enjoy that question because every project contains surprises. What worked better than expected?
Without hesitation, I would say relationships. We expected participants to enjoy the activities. We expected people to engage with sport. What surprised us was how quickly genuine connections developed. Participants from different countries, different backgrounds, and different life experiences formed friendships much faster than we anticipated. Many people assume that language differences will create barriers. Instead, we saw people communicating naturally through activities, gestures, humor, and shared experiences. The activities created opportunities for interaction, but the relationships became one of the most meaningful outcomes of the entire project.
I completely agree. I remember the first day when everyone was still getting to know each other. There was curiosity, but also a degree of caution. Then, within a surprisingly short time, people were sitting together talking, laughing, and supporting one another during activities. The transformation was remarkable.
Did it surprise you?
Honestly, yes. I expected friendships to develop eventually. I did not expect them to develop so quickly.
For me, another pleasant surprise was how adaptable participants were. Sometimes professionals spend a lot of time worrying about potential difficulties, and of course, preparation is important. But many participants adjusted to new environments faster than expected. They embraced new experiences. They wanted to explore. They wanted to engage. That willingness created a very positive atmosphere throughout the camps.
I would add that many participants demonstrated greater independence than some people anticipated. Once they became comfortable in the environment, they often took initiative, made decisions, and supported one another. That was encouraging to see because it reinforced the importance of creating opportunities rather than making assumptions.
I think everyone became more confident as the days went on. At the beginning, people were shy. By the end, people were much more relaxed and comfortable.
It sounds as though one of the biggest surprises was not what people needed support with, but what they were capable of doing.
Exactly. And that is a lesson we should carry into future projects.
Of course, every project also encounters challenges. The next chapter is called Challenges We Faced. Anna, what were some of the most important challenges?
One of the biggest challenges was navigating unfamiliar situations. For many participants, traveling internationally was a completely new experience that involved airports, accommodation, transportation, different routines, and different environments. Even positive experiences can feel challenging when they are unfamiliar. The key was not to eliminate challenges entirely, but to provide enough support for participants to engage with them successfully.
I think that's an important distinction. Sometimes people assume that inclusion means removing every obstacle. In reality, inclusion often means providing the support necessary to overcome obstacles. Challenges are part of life. The goal is not to avoid them completely. The goal is to ensure that people have opportunities to face them successfully.
Were there moments when participants felt overwhelmed?
Occasionally, yes. And that is perfectly normal. When people are in new environments, they may need time to adjust. Some participants needed additional reassurance. Others needed more information about what would happen next. Some simply needed time. What mattered was having support available whenever it was needed.
From a coaching perspective, flexibility was also important. Sometimes activities needed to be adapted. Sometimes plans needed to change. Every group is different, and effective inclusion requires responsiveness rather than rigid structures.
One challenge that often goes unnoticed is the challenge of balancing support and independence. As volunteers and professionals, we naturally want to help, but sometimes helping too much can limit opportunities for growth. Finding the right balance requires constant reflection.
That sounds like an ongoing learning process.
It definitely is. And I think everyone involved became better at it throughout the project.
The addition of Be Active Together speaks as well about adaptations that helped. Elena, what kinds of adaptations made the biggest difference?
Interestingly, many of the most effective adaptations were quite simple. Clear communication, consistent routines, visual schedules, repeated explanations, opportunities to ask questions. These things may seem small, but they can significantly increase confidence and reduce uncertainty.
Can you explain why repeated explanations were helpful?
Of course, sometimes professionals assume that because information has been provided once, it has been fully understood. In reality, people often feel more confident when information is revisited. Throughout the project, we found that explaining schedules, activities, and expectations multiple times helped participants feel more comfortable and prepared. Information reduces uncertainty, and reduced uncertainty often increases participation.
Activity adaptations were important as well. Not every participant engages in the same way. Some activities required modifications, some required additional demonstrations. Some required different levels of support. The goal was never to make everybody perform identically. The goal was to create opportunities for meaningful participation.
What impressed me was how small adaptations often produced significant results. A clearer explanation, a little extra preparation, a small change to an activity. These things frequently transformed uncertainty into confidence.
And perhaps the most important adaptation was maintaining a participant-centered approach. Instead of asking people to adapt to the program, we often adapted the program to the people. That mindset influenced many of our decisions.
Let's move to a very practical question. If you could start the project again tomorrow, what would you definitely do again?
International mobility. Without hesitation. If there is one element we would repeat immediately, it is the opportunity for participants to travel, experience another country, and engage with people from different backgrounds. The impact of those experiences was extraordinary. Participants gained confidence, built friendships, developed independence, expanded their horizons, and many returned home with a stronger belief in their own abilities.
What made mobility so powerful?
Because it combined many forms of learning at once, participants were not only engaging in sport, they were navigating new environments, experiencing different cultures, building international friendships, representing their organizations and communities. The learning extended far beyond the activity program itself.
I would also repeat the emphasis on shared experiences rather than purely competitive outcomes. Some of the most meaningful moments came from participation, cooperation, and connection. Those elements created lasting memories.
I would repeat the strong collaboration between different professional roles. Coaches, social workers, volunteers, and coordinators all contributed different expertise. That multidisciplinary approach strengthened the quality of the experience for participants.
And I would definitely repeat the involvement of volunteers. Volunteers brought energy, flexibility, and additional support that enhanced the overall atmosphere of the project.
The next chapter in the Be Active Together edition is not about mistakes, it's about growth. What would you improve next time?
One thing we would like to see is even more international opportunities. The camps were extremely valuable, but experiences like these become even more powerful when they happen regularly. Repeated mobility opportunities allow participants to build confidence progressively and strengthen relationships over time.
So not more mobility instead of local activities, but more mobility alongside local activities?
Exactly. The two complement one another. Local activities create foundations. International activities expand horizons. Together, they create a powerful pathway for development.
I would also invest even more time in participant preparation before mobility activities. The preparation was successful, but additional opportunities for participants to interact before traveling could make first encounters even smoother.
I think future projects could also create more opportunities for participants to take leadership roles. not only participating in activities but helping shape them, sharing ideas, making decisions, contributing to planning. That would strengthen ownership and empowerment.
And perhaps creating more opportunities for participants from previous projects to mentor newcomers. People often learn best from others who have already experienced something similar.
Listening to all of you, one thing becomes very clear. The project was not simply a series of activities. It was a learning journey. A journey that generated valuable insights, not only for participants, but also for professionals, volunteers, and organizations. And those lessons naturally lead us to the next section of the handbook. Because learning only becomes truly valuable when it is transformed into action. So let's talk about the Be Active Together approach and the practical recommendations that can help other organizations create opportunities of their own. Throughout our conversation, we have explored opportunities, people, experiences, and lessons learned. We've spoken about the moments that shaped the project and the insights that emerged along the way. At this point, many listeners might be asking a practical question. What can we actually do with this knowledge? The next section of the handbook is called the Be Active Together approach, and in many ways it represents the bridge between experience and action. If another organization wanted to create similar opportunities, where should they begin? Anna, perhaps we can start there.
I think the first thing I would say is that organizations should not be intimidated. Sometimes people look at successful projects and assume they require enormous budgets, perfect facilities, or highly specialized expertise. Of course, resources help, but meaningful inclusion rarely begins with resources. It begins with commitment. It begins with people who genuinely believe that everyone deserves opportunities to participate. That mindset is far more important than any piece of equipment.
That's encouraging because many grassroots organizations work with limited resources.
Exactly. And many of the most meaningful opportunities begin at grassroots level. The important thing is to start with people rather than activities. Too often, organizations ask, "What sport should we organize?" A better question is, who are the people we want to support, and what opportunities are currently missing from their lives? When you start there, the activities become much easier to design.
The edition has as well a chapter called Tips and Tricks for Sport Experts. Michael, if a coach listening today wanted practical advice, what would be the first thing you would tell them?
My first piece of advice would be simple. Get to know the people before focusing on the program. Sometimes coaches become so focused on activities that they forget to learn about participants. What motivates them? What concerns them? What are they excited about? What support might they need? The more you understand participants, the easier it becomes to create meaningful experiences.
That sounds obvious, but I suspect it is often overlooked.
Very much so. People are not programs. People are not categories. They are individuals, and inclusion becomes much easier when we recognize that.
I would add another practical recommendation. Communicate clearly and consistently. Never assume that information has been fully understood after being explained once. Provide information in different ways. Repeat important points. Use visual supports when helpful. Create opportunities for questions. Good communication prevents many difficulties before they even arise.
From a volunteer perspective, I would say, don't underestimate the power of small interactions. A greeting, a conversation, a word of encouragement, helping somebody feel welcome. These things may seem insignificant, but they often shape a participant's entire experience.
Were there any practical accessibility lessons that stood out during the project?
Absolutely. Accessibility is often misunderstood. People tend to think only about physical accessibility, but accessibility is much broader. It includes communication, it includes information, it includes emotional accessibility, it includes making environments understandable and welcoming. Sometimes accessibility means simplifying instructions. Sometimes it means providing extra time. Sometimes it means adapting expectations. There is no universal formula. The key is remaining flexible and responsive.
And I would add that adaptation should never be viewed as lowering standards. Adaptation is about creating participation. It allows more people to engage meaningfully. That benefits everyone involved.
The next chapter is called Practical Recommendations. Anna, if you had to provide a roadmap for organizations wanting to create inclusive opportunities, what would it look like?
First, build partnerships. Inclusion is rarely achieved by one organization working alone. Sport organizations, social services, schools, municipalities, families, and community groups all have valuable contributions to make. Strong partnerships create stronger opportunities.
And after partnerships?
Think long-term. One-off events can be valuable, but sustained opportunities create deeper impact. Participants benefit most when activities form part of an ongoing journey. Local activities, community engagement, national opportunities, international mobility. These experiences reinforce one another.
I would also encourage organizations to listen carefully to participants. Too often, programs are designed around assumptions. Participants themselves are often the best source of information about what works and what doesn't.
And don't wait for perfect conditions. If organizations wait until everything is ideal, many opportunities will never happen. Start small, learn, adapt, grow.
Exactly. Many successful programs begin with modest activities. What matters is creating positive experiences that people want to continue.
Part of the Be Active Together edition is called Creating Similar Opportunities. Anna, if somebody listening today wanted to create a project inspired by #BeActiveTogether, what would be your advice?
Start with what you already have. Many organizations already possess valuable resources, committed people, community relationships, facilities, volunteers, experience. The goal is not to replicate Be Active Together exactly. The goal is to apply the principles behind it. Create opportunities, build partnerships, listen to participants, remain flexible, and always focus on potential rather than limitations.
The handbook also talks about international mobility as a particularly important opportunity. Why?
Because international mobility combines so many forms of learning at once. Participants experience independence, cultural exchange, new environments, new friendships, new challenges, and perhaps most importantly, they experience something that many people with intellectual disabilities are still too rarely offered: the opportunity to explore the world beyond their immediate surroundings. The camps demonstrated that participants were not only capable of engaging in international experiences, they benefited enormously from them. That is why we strongly believe more organizations should continue creating these opportunities in the future.
And perhaps that brings us naturally to the final section of the handbook. Everything we've discussed so far has focused on experiences, lessons, and practical approaches. But what does the future look like? How do projects like Be Active Together contribute to a broader vision of inclusion? And how can sport help transform rights into realities? Let's look forward. Throughout this conversation, we have explored opportunities, people, experiences, lessons learned, and practical approaches to inclusion through sport. But every meaningful journey eventually raises an important question. What happens next? Projects have timelines. Activities come to an end. Reports are submitted. Yet the most important outcomes often continue long after the project itself has finished. The final section of the handbook is called Looking Forward, and it encourages us to think beyond Be Active Together itself. Anna, when you think about the future, what comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is continuity. One of the challenges in the inclusion sector is that opportunities are often linked to individual projects. A project starts, activities happen, participants benefit, then the project ends. But people's need for participation does not end. Their need for friendship does not end. Their need for opportunities does not end. That is why sustainability is so important. The real success of a project is not measured only by what happens during its lifetime. It is also measured by what continues afterwards.
So the question becomes how to ensure that opportunities continue.
Exactly. And that requires commitment from many different stakeholders: sport organizations, schools, municipalities, social service providers, families, policymakers, businesses. Inclusion should not depend on a single project or a single funding program. It should become part of everyday community life.
One of the final chapters in the handbook is called The Power of Sport. But by this stage, I don't think we're talking about physical activity anymore. We're talking about something much bigger.
Absolutely. Earlier in the handbook, we discussed how sport creates friendships, confidence, and opportunities. In this chapter, we look at sport from a broader perspective. Sport is not only an activity, it is also a tool for participation, a tool for inclusion, a tool for social change, a tool for turning rights into realities.
That is an interesting phrase. Turning rights into realities? Can you explain what you mean?
Of course. Across the world, people with disabilities have recognized rights. One of the most important international frameworks is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, often referred to as the CRPD. Article 30 of that convention specifically recognizes the right of persons with disabilities to participate on an equal basis with others in cultural life, recreation, leisure, and sport. That right exists on paper. But rights become meaningful only when people can actually experience them in practice. A right to participate in sport becomes meaningful when there are accessible opportunities to participate. A right to recreation becomes meaningful when people can actually access recreational activities. A right to inclusion becomes meaningful when people feel welcomed and valued within their communities. That is where sport can play a very powerful role.
So sport becomes a practical way of implementing rights.
Exactly. Every activity, every camp, every local event, every mobility experience. These are not only activities, they are opportunities that help transform principles into lived experiences.
And that is something we often forget. Inclusion is not simply an idea. It is something people should be able to experience. When participants travel, make friends, join activities, and become active members of a community, inclusion becomes visible. It becomes real.
And importantly, it benefits everyone. Inclusive environments create stronger communities. People learn from each other. They challenge assumptions. They discover similarities rather than differences. That creates positive change far beyond the activity itself.
The handbook also connects the project to broader international goals. Why was that important?
Because inclusion through sport is not only a local issue, it is part of a much bigger global conversation. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals promote health, equality, participation, quality education, strong communities, and the principle of leaving no one behind. When we look closely, we realize that inclusive sport contributes to many of these goals. It promotes health and well-being. It reduces social isolation. It creates opportunities for participation. It strengthens communities. It builds partnerships. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that every person deserves the opportunity to participate fully in society.
Sometimes people see sport as something separate from social development.
Exactly, and that is one of the misconceptions we need to challenge. Sport is not a luxury. Sport is not simply entertainment. Sport can be an important platform for personal development, community engagement, and social inclusion. When delivered thoughtfully, its impact extends far beyond physical activity.
Let's talk about the future. What kinds of opportunities would you like to see more of?
More regular participation opportunities. Not only special events. Not only occasional activities. People should have ongoing opportunities to engage in sport and community life. Consistency creates long-term impact.
I would like to see more pathways. Local activities that lead to regional opportunities. Regional opportunities that lead to national events. National opportunities that lead to international mobility. People benefit when opportunities are connected rather than isolated.
I would also like to see more leadership opportunities for people with intellectual disabilities, not only participating in activities but helping shape them, sharing ideas, supporting new participants, acting as ambassadors, helping others discover the same opportunities they experienced.
I would like to see more camps and more chances to travel. Meeting people from another country was one of the best parts. I think more people should have that opportunity.
That seems to be a recurring theme throughout this conversation: international mobility.
Because its impact was extraordinary. Many participants traveled abroad for the first time. Many experienced international friendships for the first time. Many discovered a level of independence they had never experienced before. These opportunities should not be rare exceptions. They should become more accessible to more people.
Of course, creating opportunities requires resources. The handbook touches on this as well. What advice would you give organizations looking for support?
The first thing I would say is, don't assume funding is unavailable. There are many opportunities. The Erasmus Plus program of the European Union is one important example. It supports cooperation, mobility, innovation, and inclusion through sport and many other sectors. Without Erasmus Plus, Be Active Together would not have been possible in its current form.
But Erasmus Plus is not the only option.
Not at all. Local authorities, national funding programs, foundations, corporate social responsibility initiatives, private sponsors, community fundraising, all of these can contribute. The strongest initiatives often combine multiple sources of support. What matters most is having a clear vision and demonstrating the value of the opportunities being created.
And businesses can play an important role as well. Many companies genuinely want to support positive social initiatives. Creating partnerships with local businesses can generate benefits for everyone involved.
Ultimately, funding is not the goal. Opportunities are the goal. Funding is simply one of the tools that helps create them.
As we approach the end of our conversation, I would like to ask each of you one final question. When you think about Be Active Together, what is the most important message you hope people take away?
For me, it is simple. Inclusion benefits everyone, not only the people we are trying to support. Everyone involved learns, grows, and gains new perspectives.
I would say this: never underestimate people. Give them opportunities first, then watch what becomes possible.
My message would be that confidence grows through participation. People do not always become confident before they participate. Very often they become confident because they participate.
I would say, try new things. You might discover you can do much more than you think.
And Anna?
If there is one lesson that Be Active Together reinforced, it is that people with intellectual disabilities do not need different dreams or different ambitions. They need opportunities. Opportunities to participate. Opportunities to travel. Opportunities to make friends. Opportunities to represent their communities. Opportunities to discover what they are capable of achieving. When those opportunities exist, remarkable things happen. Not because lives change overnight, but because people are given the chance to grow, connect, and experience the world around them. That is the vision behind Be Active Together. And it is also the challenge for the future, to continue creating opportunities without borders, ensuring that participation, inclusion, and meaningful experiences become an everyday reality rather than an exception.
A beautiful message to end on. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Daniel. And thank you, Alex, for sharing your experiences and reflections with us today. Most importantly, thank you to everyone listening. This has been Opportunities Without Borders, inspired by the Be Active Together project, co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. The project has received funding from the European Union, helping create meaningful opportunities for participation, inclusion, and international mobility for people with intellectual disabilities. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are, however, those of the speakers only, and do not necessarily reflect those of the European Union or the European Education and Culture Executive Agency, EACEA. Neither the European Union nor EACEA can be held responsible for them. If today's conversation inspired you and you would like to explore the experiences, lessons learned, and practical recommendations in greater depth, we invite you to discover the Be Active Together Practical Edition, available free of charge at www.beactivetogether.org. Because inclusion begins with opportunity. And opportunity begins when we decide that everyone belongs. Until next time, keep creating opportunities without borders.